What's up, Atlanta? My name is Charlie, and welcome to Big Sports ATL, where this week I'm continuing my Falcons Armchair GM series. With the 2020 draft just a few days away, rumor has it that the Atlanta Falcons will once again be on the move in the first round. In general manager Thomas Dimitroff's 12 years in Atlanta, the Falcons have traded up in the first round 5 times, which is a lot. And if I was a betting man, I would bet that they're going to do it again this year. If we take a look at some of the history of Dimitroff's drafts during his time in Atlanta, it becomes apparent that he subscribes to a very particular strategy. And in a year like this, where the entire front office and coaching staff's jobs are on the line, I think you're going to see these guys stick to what they know and the strategy they feel has put them in the best position to win over the last decade. Now, when we talk about Dimitroff's trade-up history, there's really 2 categories here. One is going up to get what we'll call my guys, and one is absolute blockbusters, i.e. Julio Jones. In 2011, the Falcons moved from the 27th pick to the 6th pick, which is one of the biggest draft day blockbusters in NFL history. This is the kind of deal that most teams will make at most once ever in their history. By giving up 5 picks, Dimitroff essentially staked his career on Julio Jones being good, and I think we can all acknowledge at this point that though that was a tremendous risk, it paid off. But as I said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime trade, and I don't think you're going to see us do something like that this draft. The equivalent here would be going up to 2nd to get Chase Young, and I just don't see how that happens. Instead, I think what you're going to see is one of these my guy trades. So let's take a look back at the history of Thomas Dimitroff's drafts to understand what I mean by this. So we're going to hop over to Pro Football Reference and take a look at Thomas Dimitroff's first draft in Atlanta, 2008. With the 3rd overall pick, the Falcons selected Matt Ryan and then traded back into the first round to select Sam Baker. And this trade really set the tone for Dimitroff's draft strategy for the next 12 years. A lot of teams subscribe to a sort of tiered drafting philosophy where they see players in a position as being of a similar caliber. Maybe they feel like one fits their system best, but in general they'll feel that 3 or 4 players within a position group are comparable guys that they would be happy taking at a certain spot. A team like this is going to sit back, they're going to be passive, they're going to trade back a lot to acquire extra picks, and they're going to take who they feel is the best guy available where they're sitting in the draft. Dimitroff, on the other hand, doesn't seem to subscribe to this philosophy, or at least he seems to frequently rate players as being a tier above where most mock drafters and scouts tend to have them. So, if you look at the rest of the 2008 draft, you'll see that we took Sam Baker 21st, and then Dwayne Brown went a few picks later to Houston. Most mock drafts had both of these guys projected as late first round or early second round picks, which means it's possible that the Falcons could have sat where they were in the second round and let Sam Baker or Dwayne Brown come to them. However, at some point they probably got some info that Baker, the guy they rated higher, was going to go before the pick came around, so they jumped back up into the first. Still, this isn't the best example of Dimitroff's mindset here, as it's possible that a team that didn't select a tackle was going to take one, meaning both of these guys would be off the board by the time our pick came around. I think you can see Dimitroff's philosophy and his laser focus on a certain player more clearly in some later drafts. In 2013, the Falcons jumped up from 30th to 22nd in order to select Desmond Trufant. 3 picks later, Minnesota selected Xavier Rhodes. Now again, a lot of mock drafts had these guys in kind of a similar tier, and really most of them had Xavier Rhodes rated higher. And frankly, for the most part, those people have turned out to be right. Desmond Trufant had some very good years in Atlanta, and he was somewhat derailed by injuries, but his peak has never really been what Xavier Rhodes' peak was. Both of these guys' careers are far from over, so maybe it's too early to say, but we just cut Desmond Trufant, so it's hard to say definitively that this decision was correct. But again, it speaks to Dimitroff's philosophy. He doesn't just want the best player available at a position when the pick comes around. He wants the guy that he feels like is the best player attainable at that position. For one more example, let's take a look at the 2017 draft, where the Falcons moved from 31st to 26th in order to select Takk McKinley. Now, this one is interesting because rumor has it that the Dallas Cowboys were locked in on Takk McKinley, and if you go back and watch their live streamed footage of their draft war room from that day, it seems pretty obvious that he was their guy too. As soon as the Falcons jumped ahead of them, you saw the air just go out of that room. So this one strategically seems like a smart move. The Falcons somehow figured out that Dallas was taking Takk no matter what, so we jumped up to get the guy we believed in. Still, this was a deep class at defensive end, and if you look at mock drafts and tiers, A lot of people had Tack rated pretty similarly to TJ Watt and Taco Charlton, who went later. And Watt especially, I don't think anyone would argue has been much better than Tack McKinley over the last 4 years. Again, we have a situation where experts in the media seem to rate a few players similarly, but Thomas Dimitroff felt that one would be the difference maker over the others. And again, it's hard to feel like it was really the correct decision. But I'm not here today to tell you whether or not Thomas Dimitroff has effective strategies in the draft. I'm just here to talk about history. And I believe that the history indicates that when the Falcons feel like they need a difference maker, they need a key guy, they're going to make an aggressive move to move up and get him. And when you look at the landscape of this year's draft, it seems like we're primed to make that kind of move again. The Falcons' greatest position of need right now is definitely cornerback, but they need help on the defensive line too. And while a player like Jeff Okudah, who's the clear number one cornerback in this class, may be out of reach, a guy like CJ Henderson could fall all the way to the Falcons at 16. At the same time, he could go in the top 10. If the Falcons feel like Henderson is their guy and he's a clear cut above the next best cornerback, I wouldn't be surprised to see them go up once again. But will it be the right move? Well, I think we'll know based on whether Thomas Dimitroff and Dan Quinn have jobs at the end of the year. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you'd like to see more Atlanta sports content as sports return in the future, be sure to subscribe. In my last video, I mentioned 2 local organizations you could contribute to help out your Atlanta neighbors, the Atlanta Community Food Bank and the Giving Kitchen. These 2 are once again linked in the description, so if you have the means to donate or if you or a loved one are in need, be sure to check those out. Thanks again for watching, be sure to stay safe out there, and I'll see you around Atlanta when the pandemic is over.